it's a question that makes me realize the difference between tobacco and ayahuasca for me. Um, I think I felt a lot more at ease with the hallucinogenic ayahuasca than with tobacco. Um, Tobacco never was my plant. My father was a chain smoker of cigarettes who gave up and became a zealous anti-smoker. So I didn't have a very favorable opinion of, tobacco. And then the Ashaninka, I mean, the number one shamanic plant for them is tobacco. Their word for shaman is sheri, piari. Sheri is tobacco. So it's tobacco doctor. And, anybody would have any kind of ailment. The first thing they'd do would be to blow tobacco smoke on it. It was tobacco, tobacco, tobacco. Okay, well, I'm not a huge tobacco fan, but I can take notes and so forth. And well, one day I was with my main informant, who was a 48-year-old Ashaninka man, Carlos Perez. And he invited me to accompany him about an hour up in the hills to where his old tabaquero teacher lived. So Carlos was mainly a tobacco shaman, but he also would take ayahuasca occasionally, but he identified as a tabaquero. And his teacher was an old man. He was so old that he didn't even know how old he was. He was born before the Ashaninka started counting, but I reckoned he was in his 80s. So we went up and visited this old fellow, and there he was sitting in his old cotton gown on a mat, and he had a gourd with a stick in it, and this was his tobacco paste. And so when Carlos introduced me, the old man started asking me in Ashaninka whether I was his father-in-law. And so, these are old tricksters and so on. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to play along with the old guy. So, I answered yes. And then he asked me again, and I answered yes. And then we had this ridiculous back and forth where he asked me 20 times in a row whether I was his father-in-law. I answered yes every time, and his laugh would get a little bit longer. I learned later that night from Carlos that the question also meant, may I sleep with your daughters? So the joke was on me for sure, but I didn't even know it at the time. So I thought, okay, now that we've been playing ping pong for 20 times, I'll put an end to this. So I asked him, hey, could I try some of your tobacco paste? So he said, sure. And he handed me the gourd. And so he kind of dutifully took what seemed to be a decent amount and ran the stick through my lips, and then kind of just sat aside and to allow the gentleman to get on with their business. And that's also what doing field work is. You're in this place in the middle of the forest. There's a river next door. These two guys are talking away in Ashaninka. You don't understand mainly what they're saying. So you're just sort of staring blankly at whatever. And after about 10 minutes, I started feeling like I was running my tongue under my teeth, and they seemed like really long, really sharp. And I could taste like a taste of blood in my mouth. And at the time I was still a vegetarian, but I liked this taste. And then I felt like I had whiskers here that were growing out of the side of my face. And meanwhile, I started staring at these chickens that were clucking around, and I decided not to pounce on them. I started feeling like a feline, a kind of a wise, warm, slightly aggressive, but nonetheless controlled feline. And, I'll tell you, this was the kind of thing that I didn't think was possible in any way. And now I'm not claiming that I transformed into a jaguar, but I had a really deep body-based feeling, and it was exhilarating. It was kind of like when you dream that you're flying, you're dreaming, but in your dream you're flying. And when you have that, you can fly and fly, and I think most people enjoy dreams in which they fly. I certainly have enjoyed my flying dreams. There are not too many of them, but this one, so it wasn't a dream. It was like I could actually feel in my body what it felt like to be a powerful jungle feline. And it lasted about 15 minutes. And then it subsided. And then that was it. I didn't talk about it with anybody really. I took notes about it. But then I found that it was something that I could like conjure up. I could, and in the decades that follow, if I needed to go inside and to tap a kind of feline feeling where, and actually I've used it for public speaking. How do you get over being nervous in front of a whole bunch of people? You tap into that jaguar thing and, feel how sharp your teeth are. And so it's a strange thing because with ayahuasca, you see things and then it's hard to unsee them. So they stay with you. But here it wasn't seeing things. It was feeling something that had been imprinted deep down in the body. And it was also, it was so crazy and off the charts that I think the first time I spoke about it publicly was in 2005 at the Bioneers Conference. I actually told that story. I did my tobacco jaguar coming out in 2005, so 20 years after the experience. And, I got people at Bioneers, I think, appreciated the story and kind of laughed and stuff. But I realized that it wasn't really a story that was that easy to tell at that time. And actually, I was a lot happier using it rather than discussing it. So over the years, I've been, put a tiger in your tank. I've had a tiger in my tank since that one experience. I'm happy. I think it was extremely interesting. It's taken about 35 years to feel comfortable discussing it sort of more regularly. It's not something that I've been in a hurry to repeat. I'm still not a tobacco person. It doesn't call me. It's not when I am surrounded by people who use tobacco, but it's just not my plant. And, once you've had that feline feeling, you don't need to take more tobacco. It's there. I can tap into it. It's, so I've got a lot of respect for tobacco and the Ashaninka's knowledge of how to prepare this kind of paste. And I'm fortunate. We know that tobacco can be pretty addictive depending on which tobacco you're working with and how you consume it. For me, it's been the opposite. It's been that experience was so strong. I haven't needed to be scary. The tobacco experience was like thrilling, exhilarating, and warm and body-based, yet not something that I was in a hurry to repeat. So that's what I can say about it. And obviously we're a million miles away from what is smoking industrial cigarettes. That's just just a completely different sport. So